Hi. I'm Hi everybody. It's Monday night. Hey, I'm an alcoholic. And my name's Gillian. And I listened to Grant and I didn't say my last name. So there you go. Nothing has to be edited. Well, not yet anyway. We'll wait till it's all over and see what happens. I am grateful to be here tonight and to be able to share my story. It's also a good thing there's Kleenex right there. I felt like I haven't cried for a while, but I always cry. I always cry when I get to share my story and to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous and what it has done for me and how it has changed my life. Because without this group and other groups like it, without this book, I wouldn't be standing here today. I would either be locked up, covered up, but thank God I sobered up. And I sobered up through the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I look back, right? We talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So the three different things that bring us to the rooms and, in our stories. And our stories are a lot the same. They vary in some ways, one or the other. But somehow we all got here because our lives had become unmanageable from alcohol and other substances. And not only was it just the substances, then it was I didn't know how to deal with life and I didn't know how to live. And when I did, if I tried to stop drinking without a solution, I didn't know how to live, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand to be in my own skin. And more about alcoholism, it pretty much just, these are the identifying pages, right? And it says, most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. See, I lost my place. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever regains control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grips of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. And I read that because as I was thinking about my story, and kind of my timeline of what it took me to get into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, that pretty much describes me, right? I could not concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. Sure, lots of great stuff was happening all over my life, and I started drinking. I kind of didn't start in high school a lot, but man, when I started having some freedom from my family and things. I was living in Florida. It was really fun. I started drinking and having fun just like everybody. Moved back to Salt Lake, was at the University of Utah. And isn't that what you do? It's like your timeline in life. Like you go to college and you drink, right? That's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to party. I was supposed to have fun. I was supposed to work my rear end off, and I went to school full time. I worked at Nordstrom and I partied full time. I had somebody call me the other day from the University of Utah, and an alumni, and they wanted money, right? And the kid's asking me all these questions, and I'm just talking to him and enjoying this conversation. And he's like, "Well, what did you get your degree in?" And I said, "Well, I got my undergrad in psychology and sociology, but I got my PhD in partying." And I'm like asking him, like, "Do you party? Like, do you go out? Do you have it?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, he'd never even been to a football game. I was like, "Okay, you need to put this on your list right now. Like, you are not having a college experience. You have not been to a football game." Because in my core, I'm all about a good time. And I just can't understand. Like, he's like, no, I just work a lot and I just go to school. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds terrible. Again, who did I hear? I want to be passed out, wake up, come to in a frat house, not know where some of my clothing is, have to find that in a dark room, and then find a way home, and do the walk of shame. That's what a good time is, until it's not. And I got my first DUI at the University of Utah. And I tried a different solution than Alcoholics Anonymous. But I knew I needed to quit drinking. I knew there was a problem because people weren't wrecking their cars and going to jail, really, at 21 years old. And I knew I had a hole. And what was I going to fill it with? And I couldn't, so I tried religion because my brother, lives in Park City and everything. And he said, I think you should try this. And so I went his route for a little bit, but it didn't last very long. It didn't work. It worked for a while, but left without a solution and a design for living, what do I become? Irritable, restless, and discontent. And unless I have a solution to those three things, and I can't stop the hamster wheel and the voices inside my head, I'm going to drink again because I can't stand who I am and I can't stand how I feel. And so that was very short-lived, and like it says, over time, I think I'm going to get better. I think, okay, I was sober for a while. I'm going to be fine. I'll do the next thing, right? I'll get married. And I'll put my life together and I'll have kids and we can drink socially and it'll be fun and it'll all be all those wonderful things. Well, I also come from a genetic disposition to alcoholism. And let me tell you, it is an illness. It says that in the book as well. And it is genetic. My mom is an alcoholic at 90 years old. She went on a drinking spree last year and it almost killed her. My sponsor said she and Keith Richards are going to live forever. It's just amazing, this woman, that she hasn't succumbed to the disease of alcoholism yet. But she's an alcoholic to this day. And my sister's in recovery, and she did the same thing that I did. And my brother has all the isms. He just went a different way. But man, if you're around him very long and he's in one of his, crazy episodes, you're like, oh, please have a drink. Can I take you to the liquor store and we can get you a drink? Would you like a prescription of something? Like, you need to calm down. So I see it, right? It's in my family. And again, if I don't know how to live without a drink unless I have a solution. So I get married, Draper, housewife, picket fence, 2 cars, cat and the dog, husband. We met in a personal ad through the Salt Lake Tribune. For you young people, that's like a dating app, but it's through the paper. They don't have those anymore. Like, you actually can't go get a paper, but we were just ahead of our time. And so I met my husband through a personal ad, and we've been married, and we will have been married 27 years in March. That was another thing God did for me without me knowing, was he put that man in my life. And this great, great thing, but the only thing was he could drink and stop, and I can't. And all of the backward stories that come in of our past, right? Because we bring those with us. We bring those pains and those wounds and that hurt and those feelings of abandonment and feelings that we're not enough. And all of that we bring to the table with us until we can do the work and start healing from that. And so we had been married a while. My son was just over a year old. And my husband called me right around this time. It seems like as I was thinking about things, like I have a timeline for this time of year. Like, shit happens to me in the fall. And I'll have to talk to my therapist about it. But my husband called me and said, hey, I know where I'm going. And remind you, my son's one, and I have a full-time job, and I have my mom to help me watch my son. They sent him to, he's an engineer, builds roads, and he said, I'm going to Las Vegas. And so they sent him to Las Vegas to build 215 South. It came off of Tropicana Boulevard, and what I heard was, I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you, and I'll come home on the weekend. The great thing that he did when he came home on the weekend was he brought contraband alcohol. And for Christmas that year, I got a wine rack, and he kept filling it up. And man, it went quick. You know, I felt like I was a single parent, and my husband had said, money and my job are more important than you and our child. And I couldn't quite handle that, so I drank. And some bad things happened, right? Like I'd pass out. My son was 2. And I tried to get my husband to come home, and he didn't. And I kept drinking. And, it just was that same. I'd sober up for a little while, and then I'd drink again. I'd sober up for a little while. I'd say it'd be different, and it wasn't. And by the time then, he finally came home, but he still wasn't home because he was always working away. But by the time my son was in school, in 2nd and 3rd grade, things had progressed. And not only at this time was I still drinking, but I'd gotten some health problems. I'd developed rheumatoid arthritis, and I was in a lot of pain. And there was just a whole host of things. A lot of it was probably because of my body just, and my mind not working together and not wanting to be where I was. And so how do I serve that? Well, then I have to go to the doctor all the time. And, I was passing out in places. Please do not mix benzodiazepines and alcohol together. It is not a good thing. It's not. It's very, very scary. I've learned that, along the way. After several bouts of me drinking heavily, and there being problems, my husband coming home and finding me passed out, or my son leaving the house on a Friday night at the age of 4, and the neighbors seeing him walking down the sidewalk in the dark to go find his grandmother, who lived in Draper as well, and him saying, I can't wake my mom up. And I was passed out in our living room. My husband asked me not to go to the liquor store anymore, because he thought, hey, if she doesn't go to the liquor store, she can't get drunk. She can't drink. Well, for a lot of people that may be true, right? But that's not my story. That's not my story, because as I read, I am an alcoholic. I'm a garden variety drunk. And if I can't, I'm going to find it, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to drink it. Because left to my own devices, I can't stand who I am. So I started drinking mouthwash and vanilla extract, because they have alcohol in them. Just for your information, if you want to file this away, Listerine and Scope have about 13.5%. I still remember this. And vanilla has like 32%. And that 1 fluid ounce is like a shot. And people would say to me, like, why didn't you just go to the liquor store? Like, vanilla's expensive. And then because you have to gradually get, the 1 ounces aren't working, so I was going to the big bottle at the end. It was like $20, and I could have been buying pretty good vodka at that point. But in my mind, I wasn't going to the liquor store, because I am going to rationalize and justify anything I possibly can. So I'm getting this from, I'm drinking, I'm taking different pills, I'm doing all that. And in October of 2006, I volunteered in my son's 3rd grade class. I was the room mother, and did a great had the class for 2 hours. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. Parent-teacher conferences that afternoon. And I'd gotten some bad news, so what am I going to do if I get bad news? What am I going to do if I get good news? I'm going to drink. I went to the dollar store because you can buy a really big bottle of mouthwash. And I also had a budget because I wasn't working, so I had to stay within that, And why spend a lot of money on anything? Whatever's going to do the job. And I proceeded to drink that bottle of mouthwash, went back to the school for parent-teacher conferences, and was arrested in the elementary school parking lot while the kids were coming out of class. My son was in the back seat. He was 9 years old. To this day, he will tell you that the Draper policeman had really cool handcuffs. I would have never, ever, ever set out to hurt that little boy. I would have never, ever set out to hurt my husband like that, who, to this day, I love both of them more than anything in this world. But I'm an alcoholic. It's not who I am, it's what I do. When I don't have a solution, when I don't have a design for living, when I can't stand myself, when I'm drinking or when I'm not drinking. And one of the worst things about that, which the whole thing was pretty damn bad, right, was that my husband came and picked me up from the police station, and my son and my husband and I was in the garage probably looking for more alcohol because what the hell, I'm still going to drink. I walked into my house and I looked at my husband and I said, you don't have to worry about a damn thing. I'll take care of it. No humility. No, I'm sorry. No, I cannot believe that I would put anyone through this. Nothing. The only thing I thought that mattered was my husband was going to be mad because money is a big thing to him, and if it was going to cost him any money, he was going to be even madder at me. And I didn't get sober, you guys. I spent time in jail. I quit drinking because I had an interlock in my car, but I didn't quit doing some of the other things that I was doing. Because in reality, and I can say this today, I didn't think I had a problem with any of those other things because they came directly from a doctor. I'm not a drug addict. I don't buy anything off the street. They're all from a doctor. I go and get them from the pharmacy, but because I could kind of think that I was an alcoholic, but I couldn't think that those other things were a problem. But they were because they kept me in my disease. I was always had something in my system that did never allow me to be sober. And I didn't know how to take a sober breath. And that was 2007. And I eventually, after a while, and things just getting worse and worse and worse, and I had gotten the interlock out of my car, and I was miserable. And as I heard Grant share about his roommate that he found dead, and he realized that he looked the same way, I finally came to a place where I knew that I was taking up space and I was breathing air, but there was nothing alive inside of me. I was just a shell. And we talk about that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Mine were blank. There was no light. There was no love. There was no desire to live anymore, but I just didn't know how to die. And I was just recently thinking about right before Thanksgiving, which happy holidays to everyone. Don't let your families drink. Don't drink around your families. Don't let them bug you. Just leave. Just leave. Go to a meeting. There's meetings all the time. Call somebody, because they're going to push your buttons. But remember, you can walk away. You can pray and walk away. You don't have to be there. But I was sitting in a parking lot in Davis County after I had been to a doctor, and I was working the phones to get more pills because I had to go to Idaho to spend time with my husband's family. And I can work the phone. By the time I had enough pills, and I was on my way to the grocery store, to get enough vanilla. I was baking a lot. Remember, I was baking a lot. I had those people at Smith's counter, at the Smith checkout, always say, "You bake all the time." Little did they know that I was just baked all the time. And that's what it just looked like. It was that endless cycle, right? Just horrible. And my health was declining. In Dr. Bob's story, there's a perfect illustration of what I felt like. And he says, I was self-conscious and ill at ease most of the time. My health was at the breaking point, and I was thoroughly miserable. And that was my life. I wanted to die, but what I was doing wasn't killing me fast enough, and I wanted to live, and I didn't know how. So in January of 2010, January 26th, I made a call to my cousin's daughter to wish her a happy birthday. And I don't remember making the call. But because I'm so intelligent and smart and I didn't remember making the call, I decided I should call back. So I called back later that night and I got my cousin. And I don't know why it was her. I don't know why I said to her what I said. I have no idea. But the main thing that I said to her, and she lives in Colorado, I'm originally from Colorado, I said, I need God in my life. And she went into action. And I will always be just so grateful for her. She said to me, give the phone to Tim, that's my husband, and we're going to get this taken care of. And 3 days later, I was in detox. And I needed it to be fast, right? I needed it to be really fast before I could change my mind and get out of it. And I was just a peach, too, going in. I was demanding that I would only go to a place in La Jolla or Cirque for treatment. I went to Lakeview Hospital to detox. For some reason, this is just remarkable, of all the things that I took a Tiffany charm bracelet. And I decided I was going to go and pawn it, because I'd pawned a lot of different things, during those years, like my wedding ring and my engagement ring, and a lot of other things I sold that my husband had given me. And I told him I was leaving detox, and that I was going to go pawn my bracelet, and he said, well, you don't have a driver's license, so good luck. And I said, well, don't come up here and see me because I won't be here. And I was. And that was my journey. My sobriety date is January 30th of 2010. And it is truly, truly a day that is the most important day of my life. And it will always be the most important day of my life. Because just as it says right before you take the third step prayer, it says, we were reborn. And I truly believe, and it's just my opinion, right? And I just get to share my experience, strength, and hope. I was reborn that day. I had a life up until that day. I was 39 years old. And my life changed forever on that day. And I am a little adamant about that you should have a sobriety date. I work with a lot of people and hear a lot of people saying to me, I don't have a date, I don't want to keep track. Because, it can get messed up and it can change. And yes, it can, but have a date. If you don't have a date, you don't know when that journey begins. And you know what? If you've messed up a million times, I just wasn't in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous to have to announce myself that I was a newcomer over and over again. But that day is sacred to me. Because that day, my life changed, and I didn't know it then, but I know it now. I admitted I was an alcoholic and my life was unmanageable, and I didn't want to continue living the way I was living. And I was powerless over alcohol. I was powerless over people, places, and things. I was powerless over it all. And I had to have someone show me what to do. Here I think I'm educated and all of this stuff and I've lived all over or whatever. I literally did not know how to make a phone call. I did not know. I barely knew how to get dressed. They still laugh and say that I showed up at meetings in my pajamas. I don't remember that either, but I probably did. But by God, I was getting to a meeting, right? And I did 30 days in residential treatment, and I am forever grateful for that because I needed to be taken out of my life and away from my family. And I really, really needed to get down to some causes and conditions and come clean about some stuff. And I needed to have that period. I needed to know what it was like to have those detox still after I'd been to detox. I needed to know what it was like not to sleep. I hadn't really been sleeping. Ambien does not help you sleep. At least it didn't me, but the combination of it all. I got out of treatment right before my 40th birthday, and I thought, holy hell, this is what my life looks like. My 40s were spectacular. And I did everything that they told me to do. I did everything that you guys suggested. I went to meetings. There was a meeting, and it was at Market Street Grill up at Cottonwood Canyon. My treatment center took us there. I went in on a Saturday. I was there at that meeting on Sunday morning, and I'd never seen a sky so blue. And I'd never seen those mountains look so beautiful. And I finally could open up my ears and hear a little bit. Because when the judge sent me to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was like, oh, those people are losers. I don't have anything in common with them. Remember, I'm a garden variety drunk drinking mouthwash out of a paper bag. So, yeah, right? But the delusion that I am better than everything when I am not. I am just a human, right? And I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to get above that. And I never want to be. Because I never want to lose that place. I never want to think I know everything, because I don't. And on any given day, I don't know. And that's why I ask my higher power to guide me and just show me what His will is for me every single day. Because I have to have somebody else be in charge. And that's what our book talks about, right? I am powerless over alcohol, and unless I have a relationship with a higher powder, it's not powder, and there's no snow yet, a higher power, I'm going to drink again. And if I fail to enlarge my spiritual life, I'm going to drink again. And if I ever think I don't need you guys, or I don't need this book, or I don't need that relationship with the higher power, I'm going to drink again. And one of the most important things to me, and I've had sponsees tell me that I'm so lucky because I don't forget. I don't forget. When I talk to you about that day in January in my garage, I feel it. I know it. I know what that feels like. And I never, ever want to forget those feelings. I have to remember. And it talks about in the book, we sometimes forget a day, a week, a month, a year ago, what it was like. But as I read, I can never, ever drink again. Because if I drink, I'm going to die. And I truly believe that too. To drink is to die. And to not do the work is to die. Because I have to keep my side of the street clean. I have to stay current. I have to do the work. I just did another 4th and 5th step in June. Because stuff had come up, right? Not as much as it had from that very first one I did. But it had. It happens, I have an amazing sponsor. An amazing, amazing sponsor. She used to be the secretary of this meeting. She was the secretary for 2 years. I have had her, I was 6 months sober when I started working with her. So 13 and a half years. And there have been times where I thought I've outgrown her. There have been times where I'm like, she is a real bitch, and I don't want to work her. She's going to listen to this, by the way. Because she knows I'm speaking. And I can absolutely tell you that I love that woman more than anything in my life. And without her, I wouldn't be standing here today. And she loves my family. And she loves that boy, that little boy. Because she raised him. Because he was 12 when I came into the rooms. And when I was struggling with him and didn't know how to be a mom, and when he was going through his things, I gave him to the Women of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they took him. You know what? And he got to be as angry as he wanted with them. And he got to be as upset as he wanted. And then, as a good sponsor, she told me that God doesn't have any grandchildren. And that he was going to be okay. And he's okay. He will tell you exactly how he thinks it is, and he doesn't mince words. It's a little scary when he comes around, because I never know what he's going to say, but he always speaks the truth. Sometimes it may hurt, especially me, but he makes me a better person, and I'm so, so grateful for that, and I'm so grateful for the relationship that I have with him today, and he will tell you that everything he went through was his journey. And it has made him who he is today. And he doesn't regret it either. Because that's what it talks about. We don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Again, we have to remember what it's like, but we don't have to repeat it. He also made a decision as I was in treatment and we were processing together. And my therapist looked at him and said, "You're half of your mom. And you're half of your dad." And he said, "Well, I don't want to find out. I don't want to become that half of my mom that got her here." So he's never had a drink. He's never done a drug. He's never smoked a cigarette. He is the virgin. You know what? Because he knows what'll happen. And maybe it wouldn't. You know what? Who knows? But he's not going to find out. And I'm really proud of him. And I think that's a remarkable decision that he made. And he made it on his own. I didn't have anything to do with that, but he also grew up with having to live with, with me as mom. Today, I am also coming up on another anniversary, and I will have had the same job for 8 years. That in itself is remarkable. Andy and I were talking about jobs and things, and she was saying she's had her job her whole time in sobriety. And I had to build my career up a little bit and work a little bit. My first job, I worked 20 hours a week at an elementary school. That was the same district I got my DUI in. So Human Resources had to call me and ask me questions about my DUI that I got in Willow Springs parking lot. I mean, I got to tell them the truth. And I was off paper and I was sober. And that was another remarkable thing. I learned in changing jobs that I never burn any bridges now. And every employer that I've left since I've gotten sober, I still have conversations with, run into them anywhere. And that's a difference than I've ever done. So in 2015, that same sponsor that I absolutely love, I feel like she's right there in that phone, like listening to me. We were talking about what I was going to do next for a career and for a job. And she said to me, "You have a passion for recovery. I think you should work in treatment." And immediately after she said, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I said that. I think God just told me to tell you that." She said, "You know how I feel about treatment centers." She went to one, but anyway, so in 2015 I started working at the Phoenix Recovery Center. And we are a substance abuse treatment center, and we also do mental health. And I've been there for 8 years. And I know that's where God wants me to be. And I keep asking him at times, like, "Aren't you ready for me to be done? Like, isn't it time for us to move on and do something else?" And then someone will call me, or somebody will walk in, or the phone will ring, and it'll be somebody that says, "Hey, Gillian, can you help this person?" And I say, yes. Because what was so freely given to me, I now get to give back in a different way. I may get some monetary from it. but I get to change lives in that way too. And as I said, I had to go to residential treatment. I am a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in good programs. I'm a firm believer in therapy. But I do it all, right? I do it all. It's not just you just don't get to go to, I'll go to residential treatment for 30 days and then I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to residential treatment and then, I'm just going to do my program. We have an open AA meeting at the Phoenix Recovery Center on Tuesday nights. I have to put my plug in from 6 to 7:30. I would love for anybody to attend. We need strong sobriety there. It is an amazing thing. I want those clients of ours to know how AA works. I want them to be able to run a meeting and chair a meeting and have people share. I want them to get sponsors. I want them to have the life that I live. I want them to be able to be introduced in the seed planted, whether it works for them or not, that first time. But this program works. It has for years. I am a service junkie. That's how I met Andy and Eric. There was a fantastic conference called Fellowship of the Spirit. It was in Park City in October. We called it the conference. It also was the same weekend as another conference that's really big here in Utah. But we had the real conference. And it's an Al-Anon AA meeting. Speakers, 3 speakers on every step, traditions. And then we would bring speakers in from out of town as well. And I had the privilege of doing that and being involved in that and meeting amazing people that volunteered and came and spoke. And it was so important early on. And, of course, I got volunteered to do it. Somebody called me and said, "Oh, will you be the speaker host?" And then my sponsor that same weekend said, "You need to go to the conference, the meeting on Sunday." The conference of the conference, or I don't know, I'm not saying it right. Anyway, and she said, "You need to tell them that there's not enough women. There weren't enough women on the panels. So remember, I do anything this woman says." So I show up at that meeting, and I'm like, there weren't enough women speaking. So I'm a wonderful man. And I won't say his name because I also learned about that. But if you're ever in the south part of the valley, he's in a lot of meetings. And he's helped a ton of men. And I have great respect for him. And I absolutely love him. And I know if I ever needed his help, all I have to do is call him. And he would do anything to help me. And he said, "Okay, well then you're going to be the speaker chair." And I ended up as the speaker chair. And I did that for 2 years. And then I was in charge of the conference for the next 2 years. And self and sacrifice, right, is just an amazing thing. And I got to give back. But not only that, I got to build those relationships in the fellowship. And that's the other thing that we so need, right, is I need connection, and I need to connect with you guys. And I have to admit that I have kind of pulled away from a lot of connection. I'm in a really good routine, and I just do my routine. And so when Eric asked me, and then he said, "Would you like to come to dinner with us?" I wanted to say no to the dinner part. I'll come and speak. But I'm so glad that I was invited. And I was so glad that I can connect and I can meet new people. Because without you guys, I die. Without connection, without us working on this together, I'm not here. I can't stay sober by myself. I can't stay sober just going to meetings and showing up and just sitting there and maybe having my little service commitment that I have, which I have a service commitment in every meeting I go to because I am a service whore. I am. It's fine. Better to be that kind than another kind. But I need you guys, and I need better relationships because life gets busy. Life gets really busy, and I work a lot. I also heard Grant talk about that we become really, really good employees. And let me tell you, I don't know how that happened with me. I think it's because I have the ism to be an alcoholic in everything. I don't know moderation in anything. And I work, and I work a lot, and I have an amazing team that I work with too. I am so grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have so much gratitude. I know I keep saying that, and I don't care, because I absolutely love it. I have a home group. It meets on Monday nights from 6 to 7. It is called How It Works. It's in Draper. And then I have a little set routine that I do. I do 4 meetings a week. I do have to take a couple nights off because I'm supposed to cook on Wednesdays. My husband wants me to do that every once in a while, I guess, So I show up and do that. But I will tell you this. My husband and my son want me to be here. And they know what it's like if I'm not current on my meetings. They know who I become. I'm kind of like the exorcist, and my head spins and voices come out. And then my husband will say to me, how long has it been since you've been to a meeting? And I want to yell at him. And then he tries to sponsor me and tells me, what would you say to it? What would you say to one of your sponsees if they said that to you? And I just flip him off and walk away. And then I go to a meeting. And then I come home and I feel so much better. Alcoholics Anonymous, what if I would have missed this? Because today is a day that is not promised to me. I could have. And I can miss tomorrow. Because anything could happen. But today and right now, I'm not going to drink. And yes, I have put together some years, and I have over 5,000 days and all of this stuff. But I want you to know it's a one day at a time program. And whoever got up earlier than I did today has more sobriety than I do. Because it's just today. And so maybe tomorrow I'll get up earlier than you do. But I'll have tomorrow. And tomorrow will be today. And however that works. And so on and so forth. And this week I get to go to Boise, Idaho for Thanksgiving. And we're doing it in one day. So we're driving 5 hours and spending 3 hours with family. And then we're getting back in the car and we're driving home. It's my living amends to my husband. It sounds like pure, unadulterated hell. And it will be. But I will show up for him because he has shown up for me. And because I love him more than anything. And he could have left me. And marriage is really hard. So whoever's married, I just want you to know, it is difficult. It is a lot of work. But it's worth it. And I still wish that he would do some work on himself, but he doesn't. So it's kind of like it's like the serenity prayer. I just keep working on myself. And it's like attraction, not promotion. I do the work, and then my relationship becomes better. And my relationships with everyone becomes better as long as I stay in this place, as long as I do 10 and 11. And I've had some beautiful, beautiful miracles happen with this 9th step. So do those steps, do them in order, do them with a sponsor, and don't procrastinate, just do them, even though they're difficult. My brother's 10 years older than I am, and he was really more of my father figure than anybody. And when I got sober, I had caused a lot of havoc in his life, and with his children and with his wife. And he would not take my calls. He would not meet with me. And I sat with my sponsor and wrote those letters. And at the bottom of those amends letters, it said, on your terms and in your time frame. And I got to send them, and I got to sit back, and I didn't call. And when I was invited to anything, I showed up. And I never made anything about me anymore. And I was just there. And this is another person that I love more than anything. And then I'm so sorry that I disappointed him and I hurt him. And I just want to be a part of his life. And I want to be a part of his kids' lives because I love them too. And so fast forward 8 years. And so, and I had just shown up I gave my brother something that when I was up at his house. And he looked at me and he said, I love you and you will never have to write me another letter. And our relationship has changed since then. And I have just been my dad passed away in June of 2021. I had built a relationship with him. And we talked every Sunday on the phone. My mom and dad had gotten divorced when I was 3. And I had never really had a relationship with him. I got to form my own relationship with him in sobriety. And the Denver Broncos won last night. And he's really, really happy. And I miss him more than anything. And I just finished. I had to be in a suit over our trust. And I got to do that with my brother. And our relationship changed once again. And it has evolved where we're both adults working for the same thing. And on Halloween, I went up to his house and I went to their trunk or treat with his grandkids. And it was just remarkable to be with those little kids and to be with my brother and to see him as a grandfather. And again, I could have missed it. But because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the work that I do on a daily basis, and that is, so important to me. And it's so important that I learned in these rooms to trust God, to help others, to give back, and to always have my hand there when anyone else needs help. And that's one of the things I love about this meeting, is that you guys say the responsibility prayer. Because that is what I get to do. And I asked my sponsor a long time ago, how do I repay her? And she said, you give it back. I have to just, life is really, really good. And it's also hard. I'm not saying it's not. There are days where it is really difficult. There are things that I have to work on that my sponsor can't help me. So I have a therapist. And she's fantastic. And I go to therapy once a month. And some days are just difficult. But I stay sober. And on those days I pray. And God gets me through it. And usually it's because I'm in the way, right? And I'm trying to run the show. A week from today, my husband and I are going to Bora Bora in Tahiti. And that's what my life looks like today. And I've already looked up, and I cannot find a meeting. Because I've already been on AA, because everywhere I go to a meeting. And in almost 14 years, I'm closer to 14 than I am the 13 mark, but I'm not there yet. The only time I haven't gone to a meeting was when I was in Clearwater, Florida, and I had a horrible trip. I got food poisoning. My son and I both got pink eye, and it was colder in Clearwater, Florida than it was in Salt Lake. And I was not very kind that trip, and I didn't go to a meeting. Everywhere else, I've always gone to a meeting, and it's really fun to have chips from a lot of places have, just a chip that they give out to visitors. So I always go to a meeting. Because you know what? Just because I'm on vacation doesn't mean that I'm not supposed to be at a meeting. Because I'm supposed to be at a meeting. And if I have the opportunity to go to one, I'm going to go to one. And it's one of my favorite things is to go to a meeting. And my husband already asked me, have you looked? And hopefully it'll be a French meeting. Because it's French Polynesia. So we'll find out someday. When I come back, I'll report. And I have one last final thing to read, and then we'll all get to go home early. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relation with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thanks, you guys.